Well, if you've been following us through Lent, you know that we've been growing some little gardens. The wintry garden behind me is starting to look a little bit different. Some things are changing. And the boxes behind me on the ledges have some sprouts. Don't know if you can see those on the camera. Can you see those from where you sit, little sprouts? And then we have our container garden over here. What do you see? I feel like some things are growing. Can you tell what's growing? Can you see what's growing? To me, it looks kind of like grass. Now, do you think the grass is supposed to be there? That is what I don't know. Like sometimes grass is good. We want it on our lawns, right? We don't want a dirt lawn. Although we also keep it cut so it's not unruly. This is pretty unruly already. But we don't want grass in our flower gardens or our vegetable gardens. So that grass we try and get rid of. So do you think that this grass was planted, or do you think it just appeared there on its own and we should get rid of it? What do you think? I was thinking, if this is lawn grass, maybe we should cut it, but I don't have a lawnmower the right size. But you know what I do have? I have scissors. I could mow this lawn with scissors. But I don't know if I'm supposed to do that. I don't know. I wish all of you were here to help me make the decision. All of you who are here, should I mow it? Well, that's not a uniform opinion. I heard some definite yeses and some definite nos. Well, raise your hand if you think I should mow it. Oh, now the mowing chorus is gone. Okay, who thinks I should just leave it as it is? Okay. For those of you who are on the screens, we had unanimous opinion in the building that I should just put the scissors away. Don't touch the grass, Julie. So I guess I don't touch the grass. We're just going to leave it and see what happens, see what grows. Kind of want to cut something. But I won't. I'll just see what happens. Every day we make choices about what to do. Just like that, right? Do I cut the grass? Do I not cut the grass? And some of them are easy choices and some of them are hard choices. And one of the great things about the church is that it's a place where you can get help to make decisions, right? I didn't have to make this decision on my own because you all helped me. So today, we get to welcome 2 people into our church family. So I have 2 more people who can help me with my decisions along the way. Their names are Tuck and Huxton. Do you know who they are? Yeah, you know who they are, don't you? And today, we're going to baptize them. And it's like saying, this is a place where they are always welcome. And it's a place where they, like me, can have help to figure out decisions when it feels complicated or we don't know what's right or what's wrong. We don't ever have to do that by ourselves, not ever. And we're here to remind them always that God loves them. Well, one of my problems with gardening relates specifically to weeds. And it's that you can't tell that weeds are weeds when it would be easy to pull them out. Now, you could say, I know, that I wouldn't have this problem if I paid more attention to what I was trying to grow, so I knew how to recognize one sprout from another. Fair point. But to me, sprouts look pretty much the same. If I didn't know what seeds were planted in the boxes behind me, I wouldn't know what was growing there. And it's not until the weeds are well established that I'm trying to pull the thistle out of my flower bed and it breaks off on top of the root or it brings up something else with it, all the while getting pricks in my fingers. So, I am heartened to find this story from Matthew's Gospel, where it seems like the people of Jesus' day had this problem too. Now, of course, the weeds in that story are actually weeds that look exactly like wheat. It's a special kind of darnel weed, at least that's what the Greek says. So they had this problem, same like me. Now it's a parable, so it's likely not just about plants. Jesus told parables hoping his stories would teach them something about life. And I don't know about you, but I can relate to the feeling that you are in the weeds. I can relate to feeling torn between ideas and instructions and people, not quite sure how to keep the good and get rid of the bad, and not even quite sure which is which. I can even relate to the feeling of frustration when you feel like you have done your absolute best and the situation is still a complete mess, as if there's some invisible enemy out there working against you. This story appears in Matthew's gospel. And what we know about the early church is that these stories came from is that it was a pretty divided community. So in Matthew, you find all kinds of stories that worry about how to tell the true believers from the fake ones, because now they all look the same. Bringing together Jewish followers of Jesus with Gentile Christians proved not to be quite as easy as they thought or hoped. Diversity is fantastic in theory. It is a lot harder in practice. So the Christians of Matthew's time were trying to come to grips with the notion that they couldn't tell anymore what side people were on simply by their names or their skin color or their connections. And they were tired of feeling tangled up. And then what they wanted was for Jesus' teachings to tell them plainly and clearly who was right, who was wrong, and how they could punish and get rid of the ones that were wrong. But of course, they all thought they were right. And instead, Matthew's Jesus spends a lot of time talking about compassion and forgiveness. And in this story, he tells his followers that removing the weeds can do more harm than good. I wonder if you agree with that. Is it true that removing the weeds, the weed-like situations and people from your life would do more harm than good? I think that's a bit of the balance that we've been trying to determine through this pandemic, right? To protect ourselves from COVID-19, we have to sanitize and we have to isolate. But we have to do it carefully because hand sanitizer gets rid of the bad bacteria, but also the good bacteria. And isolation keeps us safe, but has a human cost of its own. So I suspect that those who are making the decisions about guidelines on our behalf often feel like they are up to their necks in weeds. No wonder, then, if it feels like or appears that there might be a little lack of consistency now and then. That's what a weedy environment is all about. And what if the weeds that you're dealing with aren't actually a virus, but they're other kinds of challenging situations and people? Co-workers, family members, friends, enemies. Will removing them from our lives cause us more harm in the end? So I want to be clear that I would always be suspicious of the motives of anyone who told you that disappointment and struggle are good for you. I don't think we should try and seek out pain, nor do I think that God purposefully inflicts pain on any of us. However, I kind of expect that you could also tell me what you have received or gained from some tough times you've been through. How many times have you heard that saying that you shouldn't wish away your struggles because you wouldn't be who you are now if you hadn't gone through them? Often the people who challenge us are the ones who teach us and help us most to grow. And when things don't go as you plan, sometimes you discover the alternative is actually kind of better than what you could have even planned. And sometimes, when we let the weeds grow, we actually discover that there's more to them than we first assumed. There's flowers or something else exciting. I think it was Ralph Waldo Emerson who mused, "What is a weed? A plant whose virtues have not yet been discovered." Occasionally, what are at first deep disappointments are actually gifts to us. I think that's where the phrase blessings in disguise came from. Can you think of examples like that? I can tell you for certain that over the past year, we have reached the year mark in the pandemic, and over the past year, I have learned a great deal because I have been forced to learn it. I've gained skills that I'm glad to have. I have gained knowledge I never thought to know. I think our lives have been forever changed in some ways. We've shifted our perspectives and our expectations, our understandings of what is essential. I really think we won't know which of the consequences will be negative and which ones will be positive for quite some time yet. Sometimes what makes a weed is merely context, like grass, for example. In your lawn, good. In your flower bed, not so good. Just a couple of weeks ago, we heard Jesus comparing the kingdom of God to a mustard seed that flourished everywhere. I can imagine if you've got a wheat field, you're not so keen on having mustard seeds flourishing in it. Context is everything. Weeds are resilient. They're the kind of plant that can reclaim wasteland, break through concrete, transform bomb sites, bring color into wilderness. Which doesn't mean that a weed can't do real damage. Sometimes a weed is just a weed. It needs to go. Weeds can take over. They can choke the life out of other plants. And sometimes when you are in the weeds, you need to make space in order to flourish. The stakes can be high and the cost can be great when you simply let weeds do what weeds do. And sometimes our lives need pruning. There's no way around it. And sometimes that pruning can hurt. Letting go is difficult. Saying goodbye is hard. So, Jesus says, watch your judgment. Leave that for later. Leave it for God. Things are often clear later, much, much later. So, when you're weeding, be gentle. Which is not our instinct with weeds, is it? We just want to get rid of them. But Jesus says, take care. You don't want to hurt yourself in the process. And frankly, in some situations, you might be the weed. So here we are, people who will continuously feel like we are in the weeds, because we are going to be faced time and time again with situations for which there is no clear or easy answer. Turns out following Jesus doesn't fix that. Following Jesus doesn't prevent hardship, and being part of the church doesn't protect you from having to make tough choices. But it does provide hope that things will get sorted out eventually. If we can, as Jesus suggests, be open and suspend our judgment so that we can discover what blessings may be there in disguise. Jesus says, take the long view. Be gentle with yourself, be gentle with others. And as a church family, it's our job to remind each other of that, to support each other as we navigate our way through these weedy situations. I need all the reminding I can get, but that's how it is to live in God's garden. I'm so glad I get to grow along with all of you.